يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
What you've just heard is verse 13 of chapter 49 from the final book of Revelation known as the Quran. The translation of the verse in English is as follows. O mankind, verily we have created you from a male and a female, and made you nations and tribes to know each other, and not to despise each other. Surely the most noble among you in God's sight is the most God-fearing. In this verse, God reminds us of our common origins, and He points out that the differences, whether tribal, regional, or racial, were not meant to be sources of pride and pomp and glory, but that this variety was for man's pleasure in knowing each other in our variety, as we say, variety is the spice of life. By Allah creating us in so many different forms, this is a means by which man may take pleasure in knowing each other. And further, it gives us a reminder of the greatness of God to be able to create man in so many various forms. God then goes on to inform us that the true basis of superiority is that of piety, or consciousness of God, because it is the consciousness of God wherein man develops true righteousness. Man can only be righteous in a sense which is acceptable to God if it comes from his consciousness of God, that he does things for the pleasure of God alone. The tapes which you are about to hear have been prepared by the World Assembly of Muslim Youth and are read by Dawood Matthews. The topics covered are the following: what they say about Islam, Islam at a glance, the sword of Islam, the concept of God in Islam, the concept of worship in Islam, prophethood in Islam, what they say about Muhammad, what they say about the Quran, the moral system of Islam, human rights in Islam, and life after death.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. What they say about Islam. The Islam that was revealed to Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is the continuation and culmination of all the preceding revealed religions, and hence it is for all times and all peoples. This status of Islam is sustained by glaring facts. Firstly, there is no other revealed book extant in the same form and content as it was revealed. Secondly, no other revealed religion has any convincing claim to provide guidance in all walks of human life for all times. But Islam addresses humanity at large and offers basic guidance regarding all human problems. Moreover, it has withstood the test of 1400 years and has all the potentialities of establishing an ideal society as it did under the leadership of the last prophet, Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. It was a miracle that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, could win even his toughest enemies to the fold of Islam without adequate material resources. Worshippers of idols, blind followers of the ways of forefathers, promoters of tribal feuds, abusers of human dignity and blood, became the most disciplined nation under the guidance of Islam and its Prophet. Islam opened before them vistas of spiritual heights and human dignity by declaring righteousness as a sole criterion of merit and honor. Islam shaped their social, cultural, moral and commercial life with basic laws and principles which are most in conformity with human nature and hence applicable in all times as human nature does not change. It is so unfortunate that the Christian West instead of sincerely trying to understand the phenomenal success of Islam during its earlier time, considered it as a rival religion. During the centuries of the Crusades, this trend gained much force and impetus, and huge literature was produced to tarnish the image of Islam. But Islam has begun to unfold its genuineness to the modern scholars, whose bold and objective observations on Islam belie all the charges levelled against it by the so-called unbiased Orientalists. Here we furnish some observations on Islam by great and acknowledged non-Muslim scholars of modern times. Truth needs no advocates to plead on its behalf, but the prolonged malicious propaganda against Islam has created great confusion even in the minds of free and objective thinkers. We hope that the following observations would contribute to initiating an objective evaluation of Islam. The first quotation: Islam replaced monkeys by manliness. It gives hope to the slave, brotherhood to mankind, and recognition of the fundamental facts of human nature. This was by Canon Taylor in a paper before the Church Congress at Wolverhampton on October the 7th, 1887. It is quoted by Arnold in The Preaching of Islam on pages 71 and 72. Second quotation: sense of justice is one of the most wonderful ideals of Islam, because as I read in the Quran, I find those dynamic principles of life, not mystic but practical ethics for the daily conduct of life suited to the whole world. This was by Sarojini Naidu in Lectures on the Ideals of Islam. See the speeches and writings of Sarojini Naidu, Madras, 1918, page 167. Third quotation: history makes it clear, however, that the legend of fanatical Muslims sweeping through the world and forcing Islam at the point of the sword upon conquered races is one of the most fantastically absurd myths that historians have ever repeated. This is by De Lacy O'Leary in Islam at the Crossroads, published in London, 1923, page 8. Fourth quotation: but Islam has a still further service to render to the cause of humanity. It stands, after all, nearer to the real East than Europe does, and it possesses a magnificent tradition of interracial understanding and cooperation. No other society has such a record of success in uniting an equality of status, of opportunity, and of endeavours so many and so various races of mankind. Islam has still the power to reconcile apparently irreconcilable elements of race and tradition. If ever the opposition of the great societies of East and West is to be replaced by cooperation, the mediation of Islam is an indispensable condition. In its hands lies very largely the solution of the problem with which Europe is faced in its relation with East. If they unite, the hope of a peaceful issue is immeasurably enhanced. But if Europe, by rejecting the cooperation of Islam, throws it into the arms of its rivals, the issue can only be disastrous for both. This was by H.A.R. Gibb in Wither Islam, London, 1932, page 379. The fifth quotation: I have always held the religion of Muhammad in high estimation because of its wonderful vitality. It is the only religion which appears to me to possess that assimilating capacity to the changing phase of existence which can make itself appeal to every age. I have studied him, the wonderful man, and in my opinion, far from being an antichrist, he must be called the saviour of humanity. I believe that if a man like him were to assume the dictatorship of the modern world, he would succeed in solving its problems in a way that would bring it the much-needed peace and happiness. I have prophesied about the faith of Muhammad that it would be acceptable to the Europe of tomorrow as it is beginning to be acceptable to the Europe of today. This is George Bernard Shaw, The Genuine Islam, Volume 1, number 81936.